Hey, my name is Enda Murray. I'm the director of the Irish Film Festival. I'm delighted to be joined tonight by Antonia Campbell-Hughes, the director of It Is In Us All. Antonia, you're very welcome to Australia.
Thank you. It's very nice to be here.
Okay, by the wonder of modern technology. So, hey, congratulations on a great film. I really enjoyed it on a number of levels. Could you tell us a little bit about what inspired the writing of It Is In Us All?
Obviously, that's a question that's asked quite frequently. I mean, it's a number of things. I think first and foremost, what's important is it's somewhat my story, but I think all writers tend to use aspects of their lives, especially with their debut. There's very much components of my story, but because of the time it was presented to me to submit for this filming fund, I was very interested in aspects of masculinity versus male and why that wasn't given sort of platform and interrogation with like a conscientious interrogation and understanding. And the funding program that financed this film, it was like a competition, and it was specifically a women's fund. So I thought, what better an avenue to explore masculinity than through a women's fund? So with that, and then very much the storyline is, it's about inherently identity and connection. And so the protagonist, Hamish, I tend to write my own stories as a male protagonist. I'm quite interested in gender role play and stuff. And so my mother was from Donegal, where the film is set. We left when I was 1. And in my later teens and 20s was the first time I actually began to visit the place. And I had that same experience that Hamish has in the beginning of the film, where I landed. It was actually Belfast Airport or sometimes Derry, and would do that drive. And I found the experience, it was so transportive, and it felt like such an alien landscape that's very unfamiliar with most of the world recognized to be Ireland. And it was about, in that time, I was trying to find a connection with my heritage and my mother's birthplace.
Do you want to say a little bit about the casting process and how did Cosmo Jarvis get involved in the project?
Yeah, I had worked with Cosmo before as an actor, so we didn't know each other well, but I knew of him, obviously, and we met. And again, it was the time I was in it, so I'd been filming with an actor somewhere else, and I had cast the role, and the film was meant to go a bit sooner than it had, and then COVID began. And so the film was delayed, and my actor was... and so I think everything's kind of kismet. And so when I was recasting, I was fortunate that people were available. And I met many, many, many actors, and they're all very extraordinary talents and individuals. But Cosmo is unique. He's unique in everything that he does. I liked how against type he was. Like, I really like finding actors that are not they have to work against their natural ways and their physicality. And Cosmo brings something very profound in everything he does. So when I met him, it was instant for me. He stands out.
Thanks for that. It's a very striking visual film, and I was interested in the kind of the visual style that you settled on, and how that is related to the themes of the film.
So basically, I always said that the film was science fiction, which whenever I would introduce the film, if I was doing in person, I would say this film is science fiction in a pastoral setting, because for me it is. I mean, I think the most evocative science fiction is rooted in land, in something we recognize. And So in order, obviously, when you say that, people expect like aliens and spaceships. And so what I wanted, and I worked for a long time with my production designer and my DP to evoke a sensory experience that feels other, that you're in a somewhat alien environment, because that's what the protagonist, that's what Hamish is experiencing. So so that's why everything is very, very considered. The landscapes are always very, very broad and expansive, and we experience aloneness with him. The camera positioning of all of that was very important. How they're interspersed through the film to give that. I mean, we understand so many science fiction. It has the spaceman or the astronaut in their craft, and they go out and they explore the planet that they're on, and that's basically what he's doing. So the house was his. It's like it's also kind of like the going back to the womb. It's his mother's place. It is his safe space. But the choice of the house that was first and foremost, actually, and it's an old famine house, but it's been painted white. So I wanted the place where it's set to be somewhat unfamiliar and not stereotypically a place that we can recognize. So it's Ireland, but it looks quite Scandinavian, because that's what that landscape is like. I wanted to honor that. All the interiors are set builds. So I built a set, and I was able to design the camera positioning. So there's a repetition that it's always on sticks, and it shows the expanse of the room. And all of those things combined with score, it's designed to give a somewhat unsettled alien feeling to the viewer. Very long answer, sorry.
That's fine. That's what we're here for. Hey, in making the film, how did that impact your relationship with Donegal and with Ireland?
I got to know it very well. It's funny because the one thing I felt very strongly about was I feel that I'm deeply in love with where I come from, but I do not feel that I can be nationalistic because I was not raised there. So I felt that I wanted to honor somewhere that I had such great admiration for and such pride to be connected with, but I couldn't tell a story where I'm embodying the local community. So I needed it to be a story where it's someone observing and appreciating and getting to know. And that's very much the process that I went through. And because I was there, I had been filming in Belfast as an actor for actually about 6 months before pandemic began, so March. So I was there for a good year, and I really got into the place and got to know it incredibly well, and then stayed through most of the pandemic. So it very much embedded me in it.
Hey, I was really, one thing that really impacted me was the dance sequences where the young guys were dancing, and it was particularly magical. I didn't expect it to happen, but when it did, I thought it was something that I really enjoyed. And how did those sequences come about?
They were written because the main focus and the themes I was looking at was male versus masculinity and what we consider to be like in touch with your feminine side or more masculine, and why these words exist and why these ways of communicating exist. And I was very aware in all these visits that I've been doing for about 10 years or so to Donegal was obviously the car driving is the thing. And when I was visiting, there was always all this talk about young boys who were taking cars, driving them, and there being fatalities. And I was sometimes those roads that I would drive myself a lot, they'd be blocked off after a funeral, and the kids and the children, they're like 12, 13, 14, were driving in convoy, and there was this tribal, like very visceral connection between these boys, and I found it quite profoundly beautiful, despite of the obvious tragedy of it all. And I looked at how deeply alive and connected these human beings were versus the men that I knew in London and I observed in London who had everything, who had it all, who, aspired to have the best jobs, the best looks, the best physicality, yet they were husks. And I wanted to contrast the two. And so basically those dance sequences, they were very much something that's true. There's such an innocence and such a purity and such presence and life and vitality with these kids. It was a way to show that without how in most affluent societies that would be judged as being over sexualized or too weak or fey or female, and that's why it was very important that those dances were as they were.
Cool. Hey, for you, what was the most enjoyable thing when you finished this process of making the film? What was there anything that you look back with most fondest memories?
It's been quite a journey, I suppose. Like, I don't know how it is for other people, but I never quite knew how it would be received. I knew it was exactly the film that I wanted to make, and I was allowed to make something fairly uncompromising because it was such a small budget. And I suppose the time, I always knew that your first film is probably the first time, the only time where it will be unbridled. And so I just wanted to make something that's very truly my voice of that space. I will never repeat that film, but the first time it was shown to any form of audience was at South by Southwest. And that, when it finished, all the reviews came out in like one moment. And that was extraordinary. And it's not to say that, because I've been an actor for a very long time, so I don't think reviews are the be all and end all. But as a filmmaker, and if you haven't at any point heard if people understand what you're trying to do, critics that I have adored my whole life, as my whole professional life, people whose consideration of cinema is very important to me, the understanding of what I was doing, that meant everything. Because I really wanted to, yeah, sorry.
We've run out of time. I'm really grateful for you for taking the time to chat to us, and good luck with It Is In Us All in the future. Have you got anything on planned at the moment for professionally?
Yes, I mean I made this film kind of a while ago, and it's about to have its US release, which is great. That it's continuing to have a journey. I've been doing acting jobs. I was on a TV show, whatever. But in terms of being a filmmaker, I'm in development on my second film, which is much more ambitious. Like, this budget was €350,000. The next one is 7 million. So it's quite a jump. And it's set in Switzerland because I grew up in Switzerland. So, I tend to explore my personal experiences too.
Great. Well, good luck. It's a big job, and all the best for the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me and showing it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.